So I had it in my head at a very early age that I was going to be involved in the sport of sailing. And because of my sailing skill, I got to meet all kinds of interesting people and I learned from them. Ted Turner, Herbert von Karajan, Walter Cronkite. I mean, these are luminaries in our world when I was in my 20s and early 30s to be. It was uncool at the time to be a professional sailor. So I never really got paid to race. But what I did do is built a great network of friends. And because I couldn't get paid to race, the only way I could make a living and still go sailing was to do lectures and write articles and do seminars and clinics on sailing. And that ended up being this worldwide network of friends that once I wanted to go out and build a career, I had that network to work with. So on my resume, I've produced or narrated over 1,200 television shows over the years. I've written 19 books. I've written about 1,200 articles and up to 2,650 speaking engagements, all since 1973. So that's a lot of study of our sport. Another thing that I learned, and I got this from Ted Turner, was don't be afraid to have an opinion. Now when you have an opinion, somebody's not going to like your opinion or disagree with you. But on the other hand, when you have an opinion, you can get your viewpoint across, you can sell things better, and you make people think. For example, the America's Cup. So the America's Cup during my lifetime has changed dramatically. Think back to the 12 meters. I'd sailed on three 12-meter campaigns, to the America's Cup class yachts, which were a nice natural extension, faster, bigger boats. But now we have foiling catamarans, and the public doesn't really relate to foiling catamarans because nobody really does it. They're fast, they're interesting. But then we have these rules like anybody can sail for any country. To me, I think the America's Cup is far more effective if you put all Americans on the American boat. It just seems like it would be better, just like the Olympic Games or World Cup soccer. So I have an opinion about that. Larry Ellison doesn't like my opinion. He's kind of an international man. His viewpoint is there are no borders. People should sail for everybody, and he wants to get the best team. But the fact is we do like cheering for an American team, and the British like to cheer for their team, and the New Zealanders, great sailors obviously, they want to cheer for their team. So an event like the America's Cup will have far more meaning if you put nationals of the countries they represent on the boats. The America's Cup is a technologically driven event. The boats that raced over the years were all the technological marvels of their day. So the fact that we're using carbon fiber and fast boats is a natural extension of what they were trying to do in 1851. However, with the use of computers, you start taking away the human element. I mean, that's no different than anything else we're doing in life. So in my view, if you want to be a little bit of a romantic, sure, have foiling catamarans, sure, have fast boats with carbon fiber and wing sails, but I would get rid of a lot of the instruments so that the sailor has to make the difference. Timing to the start. Wow, look how close they are to start. Well, it's easy when you have a computer counting you down and telling you to accelerate or decelerate. Far more interesting if there is no computer and the sailor has to judge it on its own. Or the sailor has to look and say there's more wind on the right side of the course. Let's go right. I want the sailor doing that, not some instrument telling me. A couple years ago, I went to a lecture in New York City about a place called Sable Island. Sable Island's 180 miles east-southeast of Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's a 26-mile long land spit out in the ocean, stuck on the edge of the continental shelf between the Gulf Stream to the south and the Labrador Current to the north. Fascinating that there's been 350 documented shipwrecks since the 1500s around this island. It's the foggiest place in Canada. You can't see it very far out. In 1801, somebody introduced horses to the island. There's 500 horses. It's the largest breeding colony of gray and harbor seals in the world. There's 500,000 seals living around the thing. And I became intrigued. But you just don't go to Sable Island. First you got to get permission from the Canadians, which took me 2 years. And why are all these shipwrecks? And how do these horses survive? And why doesn't anybody live there? All the ships exist. They're there, 350 of them, under the sand. The sand swallows them up. Sable, by the way, is a French word that means sand. In 1979, a gigantic storm, basically the perfect storm, blew through the Fastnet race. 303 boats started this race, only 87 reached the finish line. 23 boats either sunk or were abandoned, and sadly 15 lives were lost. And I was the watch captain with Ted Turner. We won the race. I was only 29 years old. And I got commissioned by ESPN to do a 30 for 30 film on that. And lucky me, I had a Canon camera, and I took 100 images throughout that race. And I went to England, and I acquired some footage of the rescue operations that went on from the BBC and the Royal Navy. I was able to get some images and pictures. I interviewed 5 people that were on the boat. Ted Turner, a guy named Christian Williams, who ended up being the screenwriter for Hill Street Blues. The navigator, Peter Bowker, who's 90 now. He was 52 at the time. He's 90 years old. And Reeves Potts, who is now the Commodore of the New York Yacht Club. And of course, Ted. The 1979 Fastnet was a watershed turning point for ocean racing. After it, ocean racing became a lot safer. Safety at sea seminars came out of that. Reporting, equipment, procedures, regulations, all changed dramatically as a direct result of the 79 Fastnet. So one, this was a turning point to make ocean racing safer. And two, it was the strength and resolve of Ted Turner, who was determined to win that race. Shows you, that race was a defining moment for Ted Turner too. Keep in mind, he won the America's Cup 2 years before, so he had made his mark. But I think the combination of winning the America's Cup and winning that Fastnet, he believed he could do anything. A year later, he cranked up the cable news network, CNN, and started buying movie libraries and took the Braves, which were terrible, and ended up winning the World Series. And you might remember the Braves were always in the top of their division, winning pennant after pennant. And I think the sailing really helped him build confidence that if he could do that in sailing, he could do that in business. And at the closing of the film, we wrote some words for Walter Cronkite. And the words said, "Someone once wrote that the America's Cup is a synonym for things brave and big and famous." To those words, I would add one more: spectacular. No inanimate object is more beautiful than 2 America's Cup yachts racing bow to bow, sailing for glory and into our affections. And that's the way it is. And that's the way it was.